they were like, when you call home, it's raining and we miss you. That's all you say. Don't say anything else. And I'm like, okay. I never speak of anything that happens here.
I'm Adam Alson, and for the past 25 years, I've branded and marketed world-renowned athletes, personalities, and brands. Here, we'll share lessons learned and tell stories earned. This is the Double Down Podcast. And welcome back to the Double Down Podcast. Super excited for my next guest, an amazing friend, an old coworker, a current partner, a father, guitar enthusiast, sport enthusiast, entrepreneur, and digital guru, Matthew McQueeny. Thank you so much for joining us today on the Double Down Podcast.
Of course, Adam. It's so exciting. I've been in the podcasting world as a lover of it and as a purveyor of it for almost 8 years, I think. And yeah.
You have. By the way, Happy New Year, and Happy New Year to everybody that's listening. Very, 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 very exciting. 2022 off to a bit of a rough start. We lost Betty White. And we just lost Bob Saget. That was a tough way to start off 2022. I was a huge fan of Bob Saget. Matter of fact, he even had a podcast. I'm not sure if you're aware, but he had a podcast called Bob Saget's Here For You. And it was a very, very endearing podcast where he had on a bunch of celebrities, and he also had on regular normal people, and he also would just talk to his fans about kind of what was happening through COVID, and he would help kind of comfort them and kind of just talk to them like a friend. I mean, he seemed like I never met the guy, but he seemed like a tremendous individual. He seemed like a really nice guy, extremely funny. I mean, obviously, growing up in the 90s, we had him as America's Dad on Full House, and then he was the precursor to YouTube with America's Funniest Home Videos.
Right.
I mean, quite literally, he was YouTube before YouTube. I mean, let's be honest, right?
Yeah.
And then, obviously he went on to have a tremendous stand-up career, and he was in Half Baked and a lot of fun movies that we all know and love. But rest in peace, Bob Saget. We're definitely going to miss you.
Yeah, that was one of those ones where we all made fun of it kind of growing up, right? But there was just something so endearing and fulfilling about Full House. Just the beginning, you knew it was coming, but it was like the shoe that fit, just watching it. And he always seemed eternally young. He always seemed to be the eternal dad that you wanted. And he never seemed to really age. I mean, when you see him in those times when he was, I assume about in his 30s, because I think he only died at 65 years old, which is just so sad. But from that, like you said, to owning the America's Funniest Home Videos, and then the big reveal as we grew up when he had that scene in Half Baked.
Marijuana is not a drug. I used to suck dick for coke. I seen them. Now that's an addiction, man. You ever suck some dick for marijuana? Huh?
And it was so amazing. And I forget which interview I heard him on, where could have been Howard Stern, could have been one of these long form podcasts. And he was joking about the fact that he'd be hanging out with John Stamos because they were such good friends. John Stamos had a really nice, touching, really gutting post when this happened. But he said they'd be out on the town having some drinks, and they'd go to the restroom, and they'd be standing next to each other at the urinals, and someone would walk in, and they'd say like, "Hey, Uncle Jesse."
Right.
What do you like? They talk to each other like it was Full House and just freak out the people coming in. I love it. And he leaned into the fact that he had this dirty comedy.
Yeah.
But somehow was America's dad, and he was bursting at the seams, and he seemed to really love doing clean television too. And it's like all we knew, but you knew if that was down deep in him that he wanted to kind of bust out and let us know.
If you go and check out his podcast, he seemed a very kind person. So I think that Danny Tanner, right? It was Danny Tanner. Yeah, the Danny Tanner character was definitely a piece of him, just as much as the blue Bob Saget was him, right? So, I don't think he would have been able to play the Danny Tanner character as well as he did if it wasn't really a part of him. But like I said, I think if you guys have the time, if anybody has the time, just, type into YouTube, Bob Saget's Here For You podcast. And I think you get to see a different side of him. He loved his dirty jokes, but you get to see how kind he was. He would take questions from his fans and just, just make an entire podcast out of it. And he would seem like a really kind individual, one with a really tremendous heart. I wish I would have had the chance to meet him.
Yeah. And I don't know if you feel this way, but there's something about this social media age that makes death just feel so different, in the sense that all these, when I saw Bob Saget has died, and TMZ, I think, was going out there, and it's like, oh, yep, he just posted on Instagram from his show last night, and he was just going about things. He's on the road, and you could see the last post. He checks into the next hotel, and it's just so final, the end, right? Even though social, it's like that. We're coming up on 2 years now since Kobe Bryant died with that helicopter full of kids and parents, including his own daughter. And like, I can't believe how much has happened since then, right? I mean, obviously we had a pandemic, right? But how gutting, I know for you and I even, and for so many, there was just something about that one that was just, he was so ever present in the public eye. He had the post the night before, which still sits there, about LeBron James passing him, I think, in points scored, and just how that last snapshot of social always stays there. It's kind of, it's expected, but there's something that hits me extra about that. I don't know why.
It's a weird thing. It's a very weird thing. The thing about social is that, I mean, it's two-pronged, right? Because you have this final snapshot of what you were thinking right before you passed on, which is eerie enough, right? Because that post is going to live forever unless somebody comes in and manages your account for you, kind of as a legacy kind of thing. But also too, which is a little weird, let's say 15, 20 years ago, we didn't know that these celebrities and these people that we know and love passed away maybe until a day or two later. Now it's instant. We literally know the same time the family knows, right? Like, we find out the same time that their wife or their husband or their kids are finding out. And I don't know how I feel about that. I mean, it is what it is. I mean, the toothpaste is out of the tube, social media and the paparazzi and so on and so forth. I mean, they're always looking for the next scoop. So I don't know that that's ever going to change, but that would be a very tough way to find out. I mean, think about it. If the shoe was on the other foot and your wife had passed away and you were finding out through social media versus getting the phone call first, which I think, I believe that happened to Vanessa Bryant, right? I think she found out through the news before she got a phone call.
Yeah, I think so. And just the idea of how accessible we all are, and then we're not anymore, right? Even if you could still call the phone, people still hold voice messages on their phone often, but it's kind of like you said, it's a double-edged sword a little bit, because, not saying Kobe was like this, but a lot of those on social media who want to gain attention, it's like you want to gain attention on your terms. But oftentimes the things that drive the greatest attention are celebrity plus big event. Think about how often they get married, when they have children, when there's a breakup. And really the ultimate version of it is when you pass on, except you're almost not the one there to benefit from it. And it actually, I've always had this, again, it might be a morose thought, or a morbid thought, but my mom always gives great eulogies. She's like, she is, I mean, she's a tremendous.
It's not something you want to be really good at.
No, she has always been just such a tremendous writer. And she's had the chance to just give several for family. And she always can power through them no matter what. And the one thing she does is in the days leading up to the funeral, at the wakes, at the get-togethers, she's almost a reporter picking up all the different tidbits about the life, really to tell that person's life in the way that it deserves. And I've always thought, I said to her, one, you should start a company called like Eulogy Associates or something.
I was thinking that my entrepreneurial gears were turning as you were saying this. I was like, oh my God, like, because there are a lot of people that just can't get through it. You know what I mean? Like,
no, and they can't honor it.
It's a very, very, very hard thing to do. Especially if you're very close to the person. Typically that's who eulogizes you. Oh,
absolutely. But then short of that, I was like, I'd love to get together. We have roasts for people when they're alive, but what if while someone is fully alive and going, there's no issue on the horizon, we had a night where we wrote a eulogy about, or don't call it a eulogy, right? Just call it a praise thing, where they wrote almost what they would say and the person could actually hear.
Like you're proofing your own eulogy.
Yeah, but like just on a nice night or something, and people get together and they're like, let's praise this person as if let's write it that way.
Yeah, well, I do know the newspapers pre-write eulogies, or not eulogies, but a statement. Obituary. Yeah, there you go. Thank you. They pre-write the obituary so that way they could fire it off the second that person goes. I mean, I don't know what that list looks like, but you don't want to be on that list. I would assume. I would assume, and I hate to say it, Betty White's has been in the hopper for quite a while.
Oh yeah.
I mean, what a shame. What a shame, Betty White. She was 17 days shy of turning 100. Did you know that?
That's crazy. My dad always tells this story. I've not been able to verify it myself, but that Donald Trump used to take the obituary writer from like the New York Post out to lunch once a year.
Oh my God.
Something. I think it's something like that. Don't come libel for me.
That is the most Donald Trump thing I've ever heard ever.
No, I know, right? Like you won't even be there. But
it's amazing.
No, there sometimes
when I go, make sure to write this, right? It was we had a tremendous lunch.
You're always lobbying, like, but obituaries are interesting because they're probably the best thing you could read in the newspaper each day, but you don't want to be reading them. Right. I mean, the other day, Peter Bogdanovich died, and he's always this name who I've always seen around the movies. He was Dr. Melfi's psychologist or psychiatrist in The Sopranos. Mm-hmm. And I knew him there, but there was always something about this guy. We grow up after someone's heyday, and then they're kind of around, but when you grow up after it, you don't know really why. And I see this really long eulogy when I opened the Times app the other day for Peter Bogdanovich, and I was like, let me read this one. I was blown away by this guy's life. Like he was like a savant of the movies as like a teenager, and he found a way to write. He found a way to get in the room with the great directors of the time, mm-hmm. to almost write stories about them for magazines, but he was doing it to just get close to the directors. And then he apparently made one of the greatest movies of all time in his first shot, almost like Orson Welles did with Citizen Kane. Have you seen Citizen Kane, by the way?
I don't think so. I don't think I've seen Citizen Kane.
So it's on, if you look up like greatest movies of all time, and it's always like top 5 basically.
Okay.
And it was Orson Welles, and it was his first movie, and he's the star in it. It's like 80, 90 years old at this point. It was on HBO Max when HBO Max released. So I said, you know what? If this is like the best movie ever, I'm going to watch it. I was absolutely blown away by the humor, how modern it felt, how the satire phenomenal. Like you could see he's a shooting star, and almost this Peter Bogdanovich aspect too, where he had these great movies and then he fell off, and then he left his first wife for Sybil Shepherd, who was like the hottest woman in the world back then. And again, we grew up after it and we saw her in, I forget what movies we saw her, but she's like a little older at the time, you know? So, but it's like, and then he kept going on and going on, and he lived to be 82. And how many of his years were just kind of in the wilderness? Oh my God, the weirdest. I'll just say this last one. He left his second wife for a Playmate of the Year.
Oh, well, of course.
20 years old.
She was 20 years old.
Something, yeah, it's 20 years old. She was Canadian.
Wow.
Left her husband to be with him. She went home to pick up her stuff. The husband killed her and killed himself.
Oh my God.
And Peter Bogdanovich is now just like,
oh my
what's
God.
going on? She had a 14-year-old sister. Peter Bogdanovich took care of the sister, waited till she was 20, and then married her and made her almost in the image of this, of the sister who was killed. Like, this is the weird stuff that,
oh my God,
this is old Hollywood. But this guy just passed on, and you're reading this just going, oh my gosh. And then he got the last laugh because apparently he's been in, most recently he was in like SVU or one of these shows, and Hugh Hefner had always come at him. I think he felt unfairly because of some of this stuff, and he got to play Hugh Hefner in like an SVU, like a Hugh Hefner character preying on people. So it's like the last time. But these are the things. I don't know how we get to this conversation, but
I know that's what I'm saying.
But like it's the idea.
We took a real dark turn in 2022.
But it's like the idea of obituaries are phenomenal, but you're reading the life that happened, so you almost feel it's the near abroad. Like if I read about Truman or something in the 50s and 60s, it's far enough away where it's history. Obituary is like history today.
Yeah.
It's just, I don't know, there's something that plays on the mind.
Yeah. And then, you know, we're dealing with COVID as well. Hopefully we pray, we hope, we cross our fingers that we're coming right now as we speak, as we have this conversation. We are in the middle of a surge. It's peaking. The numbers, I believe the last time I looked, it was 1.2 million cases just in the United States a day, or was it yesterday? There was 1.2 million cases, just absurd amount of numbers. But, you know, we're in the middle of this Omicron wave that's seems to be pushing out this Delta wave. You know, I went home for the holidays, and my girlfriend's whole family ended up getting COVID. My brother and my sister-in-law got COVID. Everybody got it. So I was only able to see on my East Coast trip. I flew all the way from Los Angeles to New York to see everybody once, and then that was it. I couldn't see nobody anymore because everybody got sick, and it was a real, you know, real shit show to say the least. But hopefully in the next, you know, month or two, this thing starts to tail off, and we enter this endemic phase. We'll have to look back at this podcast in a year or so to see how well this has aged.
Well, we had one on mine. We had one on mine in the beginning.
We did. Yes.
Like right at the start. And this 2 years has felt forever, and it's felt quick. And there's been so much we've gone through in it politically. By the way, I keep hearing Omicron, and I think of that meme, Irma God. You know, the girl with like the braces. Irma God.
Yeah. Yes.
But I'm almost like it's like BC and AD. We just are not. And you had COVID. I've luckily I've not had it.
I can't believe it. You're like Neo, dodging bullets.
I'm coming up on a year since I got the first. Somehow I got I got the shot like almost the first week you were able to get it. I had to drive to like a military installation in southern Jersey, like 2 hours away to do it.
Yep.
But I remember coming out of that, and I did an episode about it, feeling like coming out into the light after the darkness and thinking, okay, it's going to be okay. And here we are a year later. And I do feel like what you said, that after this winter period, it should be endemic. It really should. But there's something about it that even when it goes into the endemic phase, I still think there's going to be so much, man bites dog, or whatever the saying is, there's sharks in the water. Like, remember right before 9/11, everything was there's sharks in the water because we were constant, like we're going to hold on to this, and rightfully it's traumatic, right? Even if you haven't been touched by it, it's around you all the time. You've been brought inside. If you have young kids, they're essentially kind of losing 2 years of development, even if it's in the best case. And even if they've been able to go to school, which mine have been able to, although it was a real letdown, not personally or selfishly, but this last week, the end of last week, we got the note, all right, we're going remote again starting tomorrow. This was on last Wednesday, for Thursday. And all of a sudden you're back and you're like, I understand we need to do this, but wow, we're back. And it's cold. It was like 11 degrees today. And it just feels like I was ready to get out on the road again. And we had the lucky opportunity to go to Austin, where we felt like we were that was like the first trip when we're out. And then it came back, right? I snuck down to Florida with my wife. The whole time we're nervous. She got a call when we were in the airport from a person who she was with the day before. And the person was like, I'm just letting you know I tested positive. And she's like, what do we do? And so you're constantly, you feel like you're in a weird form of purgatory or something. Fully healthy, fully happy. I have everything I could ever want. But it almost, like you brought up, Neo, it feels a little like the Matrix or something. Like it's a different world. And I don't know what we're going to get back to, because even when we thought we were back, it wasn't quite the world we had before. It was still pretty cool, but I remember when at the company I'm at, we pushed a meeting to be on the road with a client in person. Being in person with people again was just weird. I mean, when we went to Austin, it was a little weird, but it also wasn't in that case. But I don't know, getting into the airport, everything is just, it's like relearning how to be
a person again.
Yeah.
Being social in the age of social distancing, for 2 years, getting back to it, we're all going to have suffered some serious trauma. There's a lot of people out there that suffer with anxiety, and this is just, wow, fuel for that fire. I mean, it's been very, very trying times, and I have no doubt that most of us are going to be suffering some sort of PTSD. There's no doubt, and the mental health industry is certainly going to come out on top with this one.
Now, you've always been remote, but what has hit you the most from the pandemic? Like, what has left you with the most, I don't know, trauma, unease, whatever the case?
Honestly, I mean, obviously, getting COVID was not fun. I am a predisposed person to getting respiratory infections. I've had walking pneumonia 2 or 3 times in my life, and every time I had it, it took me about 2 to 3 months to fully recover from it, because that fluid in the lungs, it takes a while to clear. So, that was one of my worst nightmares. Oh, great, a respiratory infection that's killing people, right? So that was tough. Then that'll play mind games with you, right? So, but aside from that, obviously for me, losing friends. I had a friend that I lost to COVID. That was brutal, and will be brutal for the rest of my life and his family's life, and it sucks. I mean, that was terrible. But not only the anxiety that I felt, but watching the people in my life that I love, dealing with the anxiety, watching them deal with the anxiety, and not really, you can only do so much, right? You could tell them, hey, it's going to be okay, we're going to get through this, but you can't be in their head for them, and you can't qualm their anxieties at all turns. So watching the people that I love go through a really hard time is painful, right? So just kind of being empathetic, so that it sucks, and then obviously not me, me being on the West Coast and my family being on the East Coast, not being able to go see my family as much as I normally would have. That's been tough, right? I have a nephew, a 7-year-old nephew who's, wants to see his uncle, and, obviously I want to see him. So, that's tough, not being able to travel as much as we used to be able to, freely as we've been able to. I'm a huge music person, just as you are, not being able to go see my favorite acts, and being able to go out and enjoy ourselves. Look, life is hard enough. Life is hard enough. Going, making a living, that's tough. But we need these breaks, right? We need to socialize. We're social animals. We need to be with our friends. We need to go have experiences. And then when you take that away for 2 years, it definitely compacts a lot of other things. But as far as working remote, I had been working remote now for over 10 years. So, that was easy. Everybody had to catch up to kind of where I was. And so I was very accustomed from working from home. Matter of fact, I prefer it. I think it's the greatest thing ever. It allows us to kind of silo ourselves, not for the reasons of, catching a potentially deadly virus, but for the idea of, what I would always say is traveling into work every day burns, depending on how far you are from your office. Let's say it's an hour each way, 45 minutes each way in traffic. You're literally trashing, you're lighting on fire 2 hours of your day. We have 24 hours in a day. How many waking hours would you say you have, Matt? Because we sleep 8 hours.
Yeah, so that's 16, I'd say.
Right.
And then probably, to your point too, my most productive are with my cup of coffee. And when I was driving that hour in, I had either had my cup of coffee or I was having it on the way in. And then by the time you hit the ground at work, it was like, there was a demarcation I liked to it a little bit, a time to think and to incubate on ideas, to listen to things, but it's definitely preferable. Right now I work at home, or I work at a little office I rent in downtown Sparta here, which is about 5 to 8 minutes. And it's honestly like a different world. I drop my son off at a preschool. Sometimes I go to a YMCA out here, and everything is like within 10 minutes. It's a bizarre, world, because,
but also too, in an office environment, not only do you got to get there, but then once you get there, there's that water cooler time. Everybody's catching up. How was your weekend? How was this? How was that? And it's like, that whole, either awkward conversation or a conversation you enjoy. It's, everybody's different, but there's a lot of time wasted, in my opinion, at the office. Right. And not to mention, I'm a person who likes to work, like I said, siloed. So that way I could really focus, and I don't have to worry about any outside forces coming in and, tapping me on the shoulder and saying, hey, I really need help with it. Like when you're in the middle of like a flow, you know what I mean? I used to call it getting T-boned, right? Like you're in the middle of something, you're really flowing, you're really excited about whatever it is that you're working, and all of a sudden somebody comes over to your desk and they're just completely interrupting your flow. That's what I hated most about being in an office environment. And what I love about working from home is that now what would have been a tap on the shoulder or disruption in the office space is an email, and it removes the small chat, right? Small chat is replaced for hope all is well. Right. Hey, Adam,
right.
Hope all is well. And then it goes on to it forces people to be concise with their communications with you, because they got that one email to tell you exactly what they need, exactly what they want, and you could reply at, on your schedule, versus having to hurry up and finish something else that you were working on and maybe proud of, or just in a good flow. It allows you to manage your day better. My day. Everybody's different. There are a lot of people out there. I've had this discussion previously with other people, and some people need to be in an office environment. I completely get it. Some people need to see people around them also working so they know to work, right? It creates that, that inspiration. It's kind of like going to a gym, right? Some people have home gyms, but they can't work out at their home gym because they need to see other people working out at the gym. It almost, I guess, maybe feels like a team effort, like we're in this together kind of thing. I don't know. It's a hive mind mentality. I don't know what it is. I'm not like that. If I had a home gym that I could work out at, I would love that. When I'm doing my work, I like to be, quarantined, if you will. Probably not the best choice of words at this point, but I like to be siloed off, so that way nobody could get to me. I'm allowed to think freely, uninterrupted. And when I want to go to the questions or the emails that I'm getting regularly, I could manage that at any time in my day. But anyway,
I was always like that. I was always like that. I mean, but I would do it without the working part. I was just a philosopher and a thinker in my 20s. A nice way of saying it, trying to play in bands. And I never really I never felt the full possibility of like what working and being an entrepreneur and all that was, because my dad did very well. My mom did very well, but they never talked about that stuff or pushed it on us and just kind of let us flow towards what we enjoyed doing. And a lot of times I would just be in bands. I would, be trying to be a trainer, be working out, be doing this. And then it's hilarious because now you look and somehow I just went to the other extreme, and I haven't planned to be this busy, but like with work in the day, with stuff we do, with wife, with having a family, with, it gets crazy finishing school. And that's not all meant to like pat myself on the back or anything, but it's amazing what you can take if you dare yourself into that next thing. If you take the step and don't let yourself be paralyzed by, analysis paralysis, as they say. Sometimes take the step and go with the river a little bit. Don't just try to stop, right? Just go with it a little bit, and it often will work out even in ways maybe you don't realize. I mean, you always said this to me too, right?
Yeah.
It's like, you're going to be fine. I'm like, I don't know what you mean. I don't think so. I don't know.
I'm a big believer in you, and I always have been, ever since the day we met, which I think we could talk about here.
Sure.
I always love telling this story, cause it's funny. So what year was that? What year was,
it was the end of 2006, right at the end of 2006.
That's right.
Going into 2007.
So 2006, Adam Padilla, our good friend, let me know that the Nets, the New Jersey Nets, the NBA's New Jersey Nets, was looking for a web developer, and he thought I'd be perfect for the role. And so, believe it or not, you would think, because I got an inside look, that it would just be a gimme. No, it was not a gimme. It was 3 months of interviews that I went.
Oh my God. How many people did you interview with?
I want to say I interviewed with about 3 different people.
Wow.
Yeah. I interviewed with
why was it 3 months?
I guess they were looking at other candidates. I would assume there was probably a lot of people that wanted that position. So it was 3 months before I got, you know what? I had written it off. I was like,
really?
I'm not getting this job. Yeah, because it was so much time had passed. I mean, maybe they were busy too, and just, whatever.
Well, the season started just then. Where were you working at the time?
At the time I was working at Citigroup. I'd taken a job at Citigroup too. I was a video editor / motion graphics guy at Citigroup. So I was basically doing like with what are called closing dinners, which are
Yeah.
basically creating videos for closings on when they closed an IPO or something like that. It was very, very boring work, but it allowed me to really dial in at that particular time. I took the job because I was like, I think the internet's going to go the way of video. So it was like this weird transition period. And so I was like, you know what, I want to get ahead of this. So it was, I guess, 2004, I took the job as a video editor, not really knowing much about video, but I figured, you know what, I think the internet's going to go the way of video. So I took the job and they gave me a multi-million-dollar editing suite to work out of.
I thought you were going to say a multi-million-dollar bonus.
No, no. Yeah. No. Yeah. No. Not that. but my uncle was working at Citigroup at the time, and he was running the video department, and he had said, hey, Adam, there's an opening here, and if you want to take it, job is yours, essentially. So I was like,
wow,
okay. I was like, I want to learn video. I want to learn video. And like I said, I had very, very limited experience with video, but by the time I left there, I felt like I'd really sharpened my my respective tools and in the ways of video editing and motion graphics, and I'd learned a lot. So it was a really great pit stop along the way for me, and I value that time that I spent honing my video editing skills. It was awesome. Like I said, the work itself wasn't like desirable stuff, but like I said, I got to have so much fun in this multi-million-dollar editing suite that and they just dropped me in the middle of they're like, have at it, and I was like, okay. So I got excited about that, and I wanted to learn everything, and I did, and I still use all these skills today. Anyway, I digress on that, but yeah, I got the job while I was I got the call while I was working at Citigroup, and they said, if you'd like to take this opportunity, we'd love to offer it to you. So I said, well, all right, yeah, sure, that's amazing. Yeah, I would love to work at the NBA's New Jersey Nets. That'd be a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And then obviously Adam Padilla was there as well, so I get to reunite with my old brother, and who I'd previously worked with my Staten Island Now business, my first entrepreneurial venture when I was 17. So that was amazing. Adam and I spent a tremendous amount of time revitalizing the Nets online image. I literally stayed there with him until 10 o'clock at night. We were the only people there, but we completely revamped what the Nets were doing. They were in in I want to say disrepair, but they were not in a good space with the website at the particular time, because at that time the Nets had a writer that was managing the website, and so it wasn't really up to the standards of a person with experience in in design. And so Adam and I really took the reins on that and completely turned that operation around, which was a lot of fun. I mean, we were doing some really cool stuff with Flash at the time. We did the Nets Dancers website with videos of the girls dancing and profiles, and then we did Sly's Den with animations of him, and made it really fun and cartoony. It was really outside the box stuff, in the way of what the NBA was doing. And we even had a couple of teams reach out to us and say, hey, what agency did your website? And it was me and Adam that had done it. And the 76ers tried to hire me, and I was just like, I'm not moving to Philly. But then what ended up happening is one day you showed up and literally sat behind me. And again, it was funny to me because I felt like it was a very unlikely pairing. Like, you and I come from completely different backgrounds. You're very, studious, where I was quite literally a high school dropout. Right. And so we just have two very different ways of looking at things. But they brought you on to be the team writer, which was awesome because, again, not my strong suit. I wouldn't say I'm a writer by any means. I mean, I can write. I enjoy writing from time to time, but it's not something I'm passionate about. But enter Matt McQueeny. So how did you end up at the Nets?
Yeah, and I don't even think I interviewed with you. I think they had me give you a call.
You wouldn't interview with me.
Well, I mean, but you were like the other person in the web team.
Yeah. But I don't. Yeah.
We might have even. You might have started just before I came on too.
I did. I was there. I want to say like 6 months.
Oh wow, it was that long. Okay, yeah. So basically, and you didn't have another writer. It was just you for those 6 months, right?
Yeah.
It was just you and Adam working in the creative division. Yeah. So for me, honestly, like my big passion became the New Jersey Nets when they traded for Jason Kidd. I think that was 2000. Well, no, I don't think I know. It was right before the 2001-2002 season. The year before, the Nets had 26 wins, but they had Stephon Marbury, who was electric and had one of the great, I mean, he was one of the great just scorers. He would shoot. He had a jump shot where he would like jump 5 feet and then shoot. Like it was crazy. He was just, He was electric. And he was from the area. He was from, I think, Coney Island in New York, and he was still young. The Nets got him from the Timberwolves. And so at the time, he was still 24, I'd say. And just right around the All-Star break in that year, he went off, scoring like crazy right into the All-Star game. If you go back and watch the video, it's one of the really fun All-Star games to watch because him and Iverson were just taking the East back and like winning. And you're like, oh my God, a Net is like winning somewhere. This is crazy. So they ended up 26. I guess that makes it 26 and 56, 30 games below 500. And that summer, they traded for someone named Jason Kidd, who at the time was 28 years old. He was made available because he had a domestic abuse against his wife, really just before in the end of that last season. And so he was made available. And so they swapped these players. So I saw there one player change the fortunes of a team. It was essentially the same team. And the Nets added with that same week when they got Kidd, they drafted Richard Jefferson, Jason Collins, and Brandon Armstrong, who was good, whatever. But they had Kenyon Martin from the year before. He was a rookie, came in with a broken leg though. But Jason Kidd was really the one addition, one change. And he catalyzed that into a 50-win team, and they went to the finals. They got swept in 4 to the Lakers, whatever. But it was one of the most magical things I've ever seen. And in our web terms, it was the A/B testing, right? It was, let's test this headline, this player, and then let's test this player with the same ingredients. And he made me see the basketball, as Michael Jordan would always say, or Kobe, the game of basketball. He made me see the game of basketball in such a different way, to even where I played pickup basketball, I would like try to pass. I mean, he changed it. He was like your master's class in the game when you got to watch him every day playing on this kind of woebegone team. And I thought it was so cool because the team played in the same county I lived in Bergen County, and Jason Kidd and a lot of the players lived within 4 or 5 miles of where I lived in Mahwah. In fact, before they trained in East Rutherford, where we went to work, they would train at Ramapo College in the town of Mahwah. So a lot of the players actually at one point lived in Mahwah. So it was this kind of thing where it was like, wow, this is kind of cool. It's like what people always talk in some ways with like the Islanders out on Long Island, right? It's like your thing. And so following them, ultimately I graduated college at the end of 2003, moved to Arizona. I was working in burrito places, living in a really nice house with palm trees and a pool, paying $400 a month.
Nice.
It was great. West Coast, beautiful weather. And this thing came up on NJ.com because I also, on top of loving the team, I read every single article from, living in this area. We have like so many newspapers, especially at that time. I would read every single article about the same practice from all the writers. I would read all the articles about the Nets. Remember netsdaily.com? They would have all the articles. And I saw this thing come up on NJ.com where it was like, oh, we're looking for a fan blogger. You're going to make $50 a month, whatever. If they were paying me anything to do it, it was an amazing thing. But more important than the $50 a month, it was in this nascent time of weblogging, which we came to know as blogging, much like when we got jobs in the nascent time where kids aren't sneaking through that door like that, in modern day.
Right.
I snuck in because I was able to figure things out as at the time a digital native, not the same as digital natives today. And I knew the material, and they gave me this spot, $50 a month. Hey, write like 4 a week. I was writing 6 a day because what I came to realize, they didn't know what they were doing. So my stuff was going straight to NJ.com under the main writers to the main page with all the regular news. And when I realized that there was no governor on this, I wrote all the time. I moved to the point too, where not only did I write all the time, I started hooking my own Google Analytics into my posts and overriding the Google Analytics of like the site so I could get the insights on how my articles were doing.
Oh my goodness.
And literally they would flow in under Dave D'Alessandro, under the stories from and because I did that and I had this great visibility, I just never stopped writing. And living in Arizona at the time, I had a 2 or 3 hour, depending on the time of year, jump on everybody. So I could sit in my living room in Phoenix or Paradise Valley and start watching the Nets games at 4 or 4:30 local time. Game's over at 7:30. I got all night at this point to write the greatest story you've ever seen, while all the writers are on the East Coast huffing it at midnight.
Right.
And so basically I did that for years, a couple of years. I got a job at my dad's company on a nascent technology. There was a tech company that was aligned with it that was doing well because my dad would bring in business and they would deliver somehow the digital experience at the time. And I was taken in under there. So while I'm writing about the Nets, I'm gaining expertise in email marketing, HTML, managing websites, to some degree SEO a little bit, but really just managing websites at the time was almost like being a programmer.
Mm-hmm.
And then I see in the fall of 2006, the Nets are looking for, what did they call it? An internet, was it like internet marketing coordinator? It was some silly name.
Right.
We were like the internet mark. And I was like, oh my God, that's like made for me. And I applied, but you applied through the site. You don't know where it goes.
Right.
And we were season ticket holders. We had become season ticket holders that year too. So I vividly remember being in the stands, watching the team from behind the bench, like 20 rows up. And I put it through, nothing. And one day I was driving into work with my dad, maybe in the end of November or early December. And we were just talking and I was like, oh yes, I applied to this job at the Nets last month. He's like, wait, you apply? I'm like, yeah. He goes, why didn't you tell me? I know everybody there. And I'm like, you do?
Dad.
And so literally within a day, I was called by the Nets. Hey, could you come in and interview?
See?
Even when we were there in early November or December as season ticket holders, my dad was really friends with Leo Erline, the chief relationship officer who was with us at the time. He still is kind of there, I think. And Leo was like, Jimmy, because Leo was at the Meadowlands for a long time. So like my dad knew him from the Meadowlands doing like tourism ads and stuff. Mm-hmm. And I remember Leo brought us down into like the tunnel. And I remember Brett Yormark was there and we're just kind of talking. And then Leo goes, hey, Brett, this is Matt McQueeny. He's going to be working with us soon. Like we hadn't even interviewed yet. And then I remember
he just made it so.
And then Brett was walking down the hall and he just went like, like what? But anyway, so
the Brett move.
But that said, so they set up the interviews and I was going to interview 3 people, I think, in one day. And I was like, man, if there was ever a job in my life that I had to have, this is the, I'm right now season ticket holder. I'm writing about them for $50 a month. Like it's a full-time job.
Right.
I know this, how to manage a content management system at this point. But I said, I got it. I can't leave any doubt here. So they told me the time. And then what I did for maybe 5 days was go through every idea I've ever thought of, go through every one of the 32 teams at the time, every one of their websites, like through and through, for every single thing they were all doing. And then I amassed it into a 5-page memo. And I went into my interviews with a 5-page memo. And they were like, oh my God, this is unbelievable.
Right.
And I only interviewed that day. And then I think a couple of days later, I got the call, we'd like to offer you the position. And what I heard afterwards, they said, several people were like, yeah, we were forwarding your memo all around the office. And they're like, it was the first interview where we didn't interview, we talked about your memo. And I always thought that was a good lesson, because that tells you if you really, really want something. I don't think I've ever really wanted a job at a place in time as much as I wanted that job. And you think of the people who kind of serially go for job interviews, and it's just like, yeah, I'll just see what my resume does or this. Like literally, if you really want something, do every possible thing you can to get it. Even if you are the perfect candidate. I never thought of the 5-page memo as being some thing that like a talent coordinator writes a LinkedIn post about. Like, do this, do this. I was just like, no, I want to almost have points about how far I want to take this. And so I think that tells you if you really want something, if you're going to go to those depths. And it kind of worked. And then when the two of us came together, we were able to mix like this perfect synergy of front end, middleware, back end, like development into content into development. And it was, I mean, not to be absurd, but they always talk about how combination innovation is just like the most magical thing that can happen, that you're always going to be, if you have the right mix, you're always going to be better than what you can do alone. And God, I just think about, and I know you like it, I just think about watching, I'm not comparing us or even you and Adam to Lennon and McCartney, but you watch that Beatles documentary, I could watch that all day.
Yeah.
Like seeing the way that is how, when you have a good team of people, that is literally how things happen. Like I know people are watching it going, oh, they're yelling at each other. Oh, they're doing this. I watched that and I was so heartened by the fact that this group had been through the highest of the highs that anyone could ever go through. And here they are when they know it's basically the end, and they're still essentially showing up every day, showing respect. I mean, even when George left, and then there was the point later in it where like John said, no, George, let's work on yours. Let's work on yours. I mean, that thing blew my mind to tell you that that's how that stuff works. And I think that was a great lesson in that. You just get around really good people. And we always say the alumni in that group is insane.
It's unbelievable.
You get around great people and literally the sky's the limit, and you never have to worry about what you're not good at, because it's going to be picked up by people who are experts, savants in what you're not good at.
Right.
And then all of a sudden what you are good at gets raised up like water to even another level. And it was, I mean, that was a real education.
It was, and it was a magical time for all of us. There were some hard times. We all went through them over there. It was, working at a sports team is a weird dynamic, because It's so funny. I would always tell people, like, you know what, working at a sports team, you may not think it, but the front office, the mood is reflected on basically on how well the team is playing, which is a bizarre thing because that's completely out of your control. So
you can't innovate out of it either. There's nothing you could do to innovate out of it. If the team loses, you could have the greatest work. You could have the greatest senior dance team. You could have, it doesn't matter. And when it's going,
right,
you just ride the wave and enjoy it. Try to get a ring from it somehow,
right,
and just love it. But yeah, it's bizarre. That is 100% the takeaway lesson. And I think it's why even interpersonally, the dynamics of the organization were left a lot to be desired. The subject matter kept us there. The access kept us there. Ultimately, when they keep saying yes to doing things, you're like, all right, I'll just keep going. I'm sneaking on the road onto a plane with these guys.
Right.
But that is the greatest lesson, and you will never get around it. And I would look at some of the old hands in the office who'd been around it, and you think to yourself, this is phenomenal, but it's not lasting, because, you know, I can't go through, look at being a Giants or a Jets fan. Imagine working there. A lot of people who we worked with went to those organizations, and a lot of them went and they were not laughing at us, but they looked like they were in a amazing position going to the Giants after that time. You win 2 Super Bowls. Now you're at the Giants. They just fired their 3rd coach in 6 years. They don't have a quarterback. They're an elite franchise, and that place has to go to work every day with a pall over the offices. It does. Right. You have nothing to market.
Right.
There's nothing you can do to get you out of there. You're at the beck and call of a front office to draft the right players and to get the right players, and you hope against hope that you don't lose it when it comes for you in a good way.
Yeah, I'll never forget. We went on I think it was like a 10-game skid, and
when I was on the road with the team, by the way.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I was in the office, and I remember, God forbid you laughed in that office, you would have got reamed. Like it was a very, very tough environment to be in, and nobody could be happy if the team.
No, and you're like, you know what? And I don't know if cursing's allowed, but you're kind of like, fuck this.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Like,
yeah.
I don't have to have a bad day, you know?
Right.
Like,
and that's what it was. And like I said, it's completely beyond your control. But I'll tell you what, the on the other side of the coin, I remember we also went on a 13-game winning streak, and it was like we were all riding high, you know? It was like, so, you know, it was a very, very unique work environment. And I wouldn't trade it for the world, but like you said, I don't know that it was sustainable. But the one of the really cool things that I want to talk to you today about was that you actually became a road dog. You went on the road with the team.
Oh my God!
That was like a dream come true for you.
Yeah, everything with the Nets at a certain point, it just kept happening. And it's like being at I'm not a great bettor. I mean, I do online betting now, but I guess it's like being at one of these tables and everything you're rolling, you know, is working. Women are on your side. Like, you know, it's like everything's rolling. So we got that job at the Nets, and the deal was that it was a home team thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
You would cover them at home, which is fine. But then I'm like, look, I'm 24 going on 25. I have nothing to, I don't want to write about the team from my couch. That's freaking weird. I'm sorry. It's a period in time where there's so much great access to be had. It was an early time for a lot of these, like even TV shows, right? Where you got behind the scenes. And so I thought if there was that was a defining thing. Now I had my dream job. So I'm like, let's just keep pushing this. And again, I wrote a memo. That talked, maybe this one was 3 pages, and it talked about all the things we could accomplish by going on the road. And each step of the way, I was like, hey, let's just see what happens. And then I start to feel sheepish because now they're having executive meetings about me going on the road. And Rod Thorne and Bobby Marks are in meetings about me going on the road.
By the way, for those who don't know, Rod Thorne is the guy who's responsible for drafting Michael Jordan.
That's right. And he was one of the nicest men.
Yeah, he was an
I mean,
interesting
just
guy.
a gentleman. And was responsible for getting Jason Kidd.
Yeah.
And Vince Carter.
Mhm.
And so, yeah, so it goes through this process, and each step I'm like, oh my God, they're going to have it. And the person who we tangentially worked for was like, all right, we're going to have a meeting. I'm like, you're having a meeting about me? This is so bad. Like my cheeks turn red. I'm like, what's going on? This is so bad. You can't be having. And I just remember, I think Shauna, the person we worked, she was basically our kind of department head. I remember she came out and she either emailed me from literally right across the on either side of the divider, or said, or came over and like pumped her arms and goes, "You're going on the road." I was like, "Oh my God." And so I didn't go on all the road trips. And ultimately it got cut short after the second because of the aforementioned 10-game losing streak. And I get it. What's the point of being on the road? But then that speaks to your double-edged sword. What's the point of doing this then? Like, if it could just be taken because the team's bad and they want to save a couple of bucks for one seat, I don't know. I could go either way, but I didn't like that it could be that capricious. So anyway, I get this sign off, and my first road trip is going to be Thanksgiving, the annual Thanksgiving trip. And it was going to go to, I remember it ended in LA. It went to Portland. It was Portland, I think, before. Oh, Portland and Seattle were before that. And that might have just been, it was 4-0. It's crazy how you can forget. You could forget where you were, but yeah, it was definitely Portland, Seattle, Los Angeles. Yeah, the other one was crazier, but I just remember, it was Salt Lake City. It was the first one because that was the first place I ever traveled.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, oh my God. And I'm like, what do you do? And they're like, yeah, just pack your bag, get your stuff. You'll go through security here in the facility. And then you get on a bus and so basically you show up. I showed up like in a semi suit. And I remember the head of PR was like, oh, welcome the young Republicans. Because I was like, I don't know what to do, and I'm like, I'll wear suits to the games too, even though you didn't have to.
Right.
But yes, I show up, go through, and then you're just like on the bus and you're just like, I'm going to be quiet and keep my head down because this is crazy.
Right. Just try to stay under the radar.
But I remember getting on, and this is when the Nets had everybody. So Michelle Beadle is there. Marv Albert was around, Carino and Capstraw were there. Mark Jackson would be around.
Right.
They had just so many people in the mix.
What a
Ian
lineup.
Eagle.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I remember getting on the plane and just being like, this is so fucking cool. And like learning how this works. So, the players go on first and they're in the front of the plane. Coaches and management are in kind of the second part of the plane, and the rest of the rascals are in the back, the rest of us. But it was still, the back is full on first class level seating and space and all that. And it's sit wherever you want, sit with who you want. You get on, they close up everything and they're like, all right, we're off. Like,
right.
And they had plates or tables in the back of just food, like P.F. Chang's, Morton's Steakhouse. There was just always food, and you would just go and grab it. It would be the middle of the night flying out of Portland, and it's like, yeah, let's have a meal.
Right.
And so I just remember
awesome.
being on the plane, landing Salt Lake City, and then just being taken to the biggest building in Salt Lake City, and that's our hotel, the Grand American. Beautiful hotel. And it was like the scene from Home Alone, and like taking over. So you walk in, and I'm learning all this, like, because no one's telling you what to do.
Right.
But there's just a kind of a welcome committee at all the hotels from the staff, and then often women and alternate families. I mean, for the most part, which is crazy. And there's just a table with all these envelopes, and then the manifest of the travel party.
Mm-hmm.
And it would be like, Vince Carter, Kenny Skywalker, which was Jason Kidd's name. Some of them have fake names because they didn't want people
Sure, of
to
course.
know. And that's like Matt McQueeny, Rod Thorne,
right.
Matt McQueeny. And I pick up my little envelope, and there was one of those big manila envelopes. So it had all the game notes. It had like all the information you're going to need for being there.
Mm-hmm.
And I went upstairs and I opened the door, and it was just an enormous suite. It was almost like what some hotels have, like a presidential suite. It was enormous. And I'm like looking out the window across all of Salt Lake City, like, what the heck is going on? And then you'd go to the game. There were the buses, you'd get on with the team over to the game. Of course, Jason Kidd the whole time I traveled, he sat on the back of the plane with us because he was kind of in open process to the team, which was kind of hard to watch for me. But it was the most fun. It was like another movie. It was like almost famous.
You must have felt like you won a contest or something.
I was on such a high that I didn't even know what to do in terms of I was on such a high that I wanted to continually be creating content. So there would be no doubt that I shouldn't be out there. Right. Like I remember I had you creating templates for blogs and all this stuff, ways that I could upload photo galleries, taking photos, I think from my phone.
Yeah.
And I'd be taking these pretty cool photos. Like we're all walking into the hotel, walking into the room, looking out on the city. I would write a lot of stuff that had to do with that. We created emails called the Road Report. We'd get sponsorships for it. And that was crazy too, because I'm on the road. You'd be maybe sometimes drinking all night. You get up and you have to do a road report on the West Coast, which is 3 hours ahead or 3 hours behind. And they're like, we got to get this thing out. And you're like, what do you mean? It's 6:30 in the morning. And you're coding HTML from the presidential suite of the Grand American. So, but you know what it is? The parts, the camaraderie, going to the games was amazing. Showing up in every single location that was also in that manila folder was your media pass, which I have a lot of them up on the wall in here.
You saved them.
I saved them because they're so cool. It's like the Golden State Warriors, Matt McQueeny, NJnets.com, it was, and you could walk into every arena. You take this bus, it drops you right off into the bowels of the arena. You walk right in. You don't know where you're going either. You're just pretending you know what you're doing. Just walking down a hall, and it's media's this way. It's yeah, I know. I was just getting a cigarette or something. And then you're sitting in the media rooms, and then the next thing is when you love basketball and the NBA, you have the NBA League Pass. You're like, holy crap, that's Hot Rod Hundley. That's the voice of the Jazz, or that's this writer, and those writers' rooms were so great because you would just, after the games, not as much on the road, but at home, you would be in the writers' rooms and they'd be like, this goddamn team had to go to overtime, this piece of crap. It was hilarious. And then they'd just be like, McQueeny actually likes this shit.
These guys are seasoned, hardened beat writers that just want to go home, and you're there like a kid in a candy shop.
Oh, I loved it. And so, but then you're on the road, and one of the cool things was when they on game days, basically you'd go out for a good lunch. And all these guys got per diem too, the players included. They'd get a solid per diem, and they're making $5 million a year, and they'd get $120 a day, which is paid to you in one check. So you go on a 10-day road trip, the front of the trip, they get a $1,250 check.
Wow.
Just for going out there. And and then all the traveling party did too. The traveling party would upload the check immediately into the bank, and then Yes Network would pay for everyone's meals because Yes Network didn't do per diem. So Yes Network people were like, all right, we'll put it on the card. We're going to the best steakhouse in town. But when you got pulled into the road crew like that, it was really great. I remember the first day, the game day in Salt Lake City. So the second day we were there. And they're like, hey, we're going to P.F. Chang's. You want to go? I'm like, heck yeah, I love P.F. Chang's. And so I go there, and I was eating lunch with Carino, Capper, Iron Eagle, and, maybe Jim. I can't. Oh shit, I can't remember his.
But for the people
name.
who don't know, this is the Nets. Yes, the Nets broadcasts color commentary.
Yeah, but like Ian Eagle's gone on to be like number 2 team for NFL games as well. You know, like he's a great one. His son is now a voice, I think, of the Clippers, which is crazy.
And what a name, by the way, Ian Eagle.
Like
what the
Ian
heck?
Eagle. My favorite thing is I would be hanging with these guys, and I knew them inside out. So I would, you know, oh man, I shouldn't tell that story, but we were at a, you know, we might have been at a questionable establishment once. A couple of one of the oldest questionable establishments in the country, and there was one announcer who was famous for all his years, including college basketball. I know his name, but I'm not going to say it. For college basketball, his thing was always, if you were down 3 and there were like 20 seconds to go, he was always like, they can go for the quick 2. They can go for the quick 2. Like that was his thing. And it's like, all right, we know. And then he'd start saying it. And the other announcer would be like, yeah, we know they can go for the quick. And I just remember I had like a bunch of drinks and I just kept going, we're going to go for the quick 2. And it was like, he was laughing so hard. And then he was like, it was funny though, because I almost breathed a little life into them, because it was like, oh,
of
we got
course.
this.
Well,
we
you
got
revitalized. Yeah, you revitalized them. They got to kind of, you know, especially like I said, when you have these guys that are just so hardened and been there, and they're kind of over it, and then they have, it's like, you know, it's like getting a puppy again.
Oh, it was so funny. And so we're at that lunch in Salt Lake City, and Ian Eagle, who when he was a young announcer, he would go onto this radio show each week. And the host was another hardened guy or something, and he hears this young pippersnapper or whatever from whippersnapper Pipper. I'm thinking of, because I'm about to say a malapropism of his name. The guy was like, "Oh, I guess this guest has like a name." So for weeks, Iron Eagle would come on the show, and the guy would be like, "And it's the segment with the Iron Eagle." He never corrected him because he was a young guy. And so he was like the Iron Eagle.
Right.
So we're sitting there, and he is, you know, he's a running basically comedy hour. He's so funny. And if I knew anything more than the Nets, it was PF Chang's, because when I moved to Arizona, my cousin was like high up working at one of the original research and development PF Chang's there in Arizona. So I knew all the tricks. And I was like, oh, you know, Chang spicy chicken. I'm like, you ever get it stock velveted? And then Ian Eagle's like, hold on. What? I was like, yeah, you can make it healthy, stock velvet. He's like, wait a second. He calls his wife. He's like, you have to tell her this. So I'm on the phone with Mrs. Ian Eagle, telling her about stock velveting at midday in Salt Lake City. I'm like, and then that became our thing. Every time we see him, he's like, stock velveting. I'm like, yeah, I know. Go for the quick 2. It wasn't him though, by the way. I just was laughing. And so it was the camaraderie, like some of the greatest times. And then when they accepted you in, so one of the coolest was maybe the second. This was Thanksgiving, right? So everyone at the Nets was sending me notes. Happy Thanksgiving, buddy. Way to take one for the team, you know, being out there. And I'm like, being out there, what do I'm alone. What am I going to have Thanksgiving with my family or be on the road with the Nets? Like,
right.
This is, and we were off, right? Thursday, Friday. So now I'm on the road and I have no obligations during the day because everyone at the office is home for Thanksgiving. The team's on the road.
Right.
Oh, it was so great. And so we were, when we got to Portland, they were like, all right, Il Gaucho, which is one of the famous steakhouses there. They're like, McQueeny, you in? Meet us 8 p.m. the lobby. We're going to El Gaucho. Dressed kind of nice. I'm like, all right. So I show up and we all go over together, and I'm with the whole team of people. And we walk into El Gaucho Steakhouse, which is just one of these absurdly upscale, you know, steakhouses. And we're being led to our table. And we're being led past the tables. We're being led past tables that have players at them, that have coaches seated at them. and they're like, your room is ready. They opened up these beautiful like wooden doors. We have our own room in
Private
the back
dining
of the
area.
steakhouse.
Yeah.
With, by the way, so we sit down and they're like, all right, John, there was this guy, John, who was like a producer. John's our wine guy. He's wearing the backwards beret tonight. Like he always wore a beret. And so I'm not kidding. They're like ordering Chateau Lafite, like whatever all these wines are. And I just remember I was not much of a wine drinker really, but when it's the best stuff in the world, you're like, whatever. I remember they just kept ordering wine bottle after wine bottle. And I had 6 or 7 glasses deep of glasses to get to. And we're eating like $100 steaks and the greatest wines you've ever had.
Right.
And then
way to take one for the team.
Oh, it was brutal. Oh, they're like, McQueeny, remember when you call home, and I had no one calling home to, although I did just start dating my to-be wife at the time, but we went a while without speaking a lot of those times. But they were like, when you call home, it's raining and we miss you. That's all you say. Don't say anything else. And I'm like, okay. I never speak of anything that happens here. And so, but anyway, we're at this steakhouse, and guys are just, you get that deep on that kind of wine. And I just vividly remember two of the traveling party almost being brought to fisticuffs over the value of Jason Collins as a player. It was as if you talked about someone's mother.
Wow.
When one was like, he can't do it. And they're like, don't you say that. He sets screens and he's a team. And I'm like, oh my God, what is going on here?
Right.
And they're almost about to punch each other out over this.
Whoa.
So we're like the Godfather in this back room. I remember at one point, Lawrence Frank walks in to say hello to everyone. And he's like,
coach of the team, by the way.
Coach Lawrence Frank, now head of the Clippers.
Yep.
And I remember he would always say, the road's pretty good, huh, McQueeny? Because he's like coming in to see us, and I'm just like, oh, I'm not looking. Then we're just going crazy. Little did I know there was one of the finest humidors in the Northwest in our private room. So we are then led through like the catacombs of the greatest cigars. I don't have cigars, but it's like, sure.
Right, of course. It's the greatest cigar. You gotta.
So now we're having like cigars.
Right.
Pictures, and the coolest part, the end of that night, I could see out of the corner of my eye some stuff happening, and the waiter walks up and hands the check to me.
To you?
Yep. It was $9,000.
Oh, you got that.
And then, but they thought they were. But I can play things pretty straight faced. I knew it was a joke, so I'm just like, start pretending to pull out my credit card. They're like, no, we got it. But it was pretty funny to be looped in on these things. But yeah, it was, being on the road, and then, we ended up Seattle on that trip. And I just remember walking from our hotel down to the Pike's Place on Thanksgiving morning, just being like, this is so cool. And to be able to go see a game in Seattle before the team was moved. And that was one of the coolest seats because it was directly under the hoop where I was sitting. I actually caught one of the balls and like gave it to Boki Nakbar. And then finishing the trip off, the Nets actually went 4-0 on this trip. Finishing the trip off in Los Angeles. You live there. It is the most iconic place to go to for an NBA trip. Everyone stays at the Marina Del Rey Ritz-Carlton. Oops, I just gave it all away. Everyone talks about how amazing the bartender is, knowing her by name. And just that vibe there, overlooking the sailboats and the water. And then we'd go to have dinner at Venice Beach. There's that famous Mexican restaurant there. I can't think of the name of it off the top of my head. And it was just like everything about the Los Angeles experience. Getting on the bus, the weather's beautiful, heading into the insides of the Staples Center. Kobe, you're It was
he was still playing at the time.
he was in the heart. I mean, he had not gone into his second run of championships yet, because it was 2007. So he was still only, what's that now, 15 years ago. He would have been 40, 44. So he's only 28, 29 still.
Yeah, he's still in his prime.
But so, yeah, it was great, only to be dropped back off. I got back on the road the next week for a 2 little quick hitter trip for some reason, Detroit and Cleveland. And that was the game the Nets won in Cleveland. And then that was the night before Jason Kidd's migraine game, where he didn't play. He was kind of in protest.
Right.
Everyone can look it up. It was crazy. And then there were all kinds of leaks from the plane that night. I remember
this, yeah.
And I knew everybody. I was there. Like, I saw everyone he was talking to. So I'm like, oh, those are the leakers. But, you know, it was so cool to be on the road. And then my last trip before it all unraveled with the team was one of the all-timers. I mean, this is the one you end on. I went through every season. It was around this time of year. It was January, beginning of January. And we went from Phoenix. So basically summer we went from Los Angeles was first for the Clippers, then to Phoenix. Then we went into fall and spring. We went Sacramento, San Francisco for the Warriors, then Denver, winter, and then Minneapolis.
Oh boy. Packing
for that 10-day trip was crazy. And the team kept losing.
Yeah, I remember that.
And I just remember one of the greatest times. I mean, they got blitzed by Sacramento. And then you got on the bus to go from Sacramento to San Francisco. It's like an hour and a half. And they had all the interns or gophers for the media group. One of their jobs when the blowout happened was to go out and get some of the finest Napa Valley Cabernet beer and in and out orders for everybody on the bus.
It was a sulk in their misery, right?
Well, no, that was our bus. So the media bus didn't have to be with the players.
Oh, okay.
So the players, I remember I got to, by the time we got to San Francisco, I remember seeing our friend Vince Carter by the elevator. I'm like, what's up, Vince? He goes, I heard you all had a great time on your bus. He goes, ours was like a morgue. We were like passing a little flask around.
Oh, man.
But our bus trip was literally like an Almost Famous scene. We were rowdy. I remember writing that story so fast because it was a blowout, so it didn't even matter. You could just mail it in. Then getting like wine and Coors Lights going, In-N-Out Burger. People were wild. Chris Carino took over the loudspeaker on the bus to do a Mike and the Mad Dog show over the loudspeaker. And then everyone's like calling in to him. It was really fun. I mean, and then we get to San Francisco just in the middle of the night, part of night in, the Western, like the Pacific time zone. You don't even know where you are. It's like 2 a.m. there. Emails are already coming from the office at 5 or 6 a.m.
Right.
Like, I don't even know what's going on anymore. And I got to do like a road report. But no, it was a really it was a special way to travel. And they're really, as much as the Nets needed convincing to do it, I think they can all afford it to put one person out there. I think it makes a difference to have one more person who's almost in the mix, like a team member.
Sure.
Close. And it brings you closer with players. It brings you closer with announcers. That stuff carries over. And
Gonzo journalism.
No, totally. And like the last thing I would say from it, one of the really touching moments was they just kept losing. And Timmy, who was the trainer, he always looked out for me pretty well. He'd always be like, he'd be talking to people and he'd be like, McQueeny, make sure to be here at this time, And then one time he came up to me and he goes, hey, it's a late night tonight. He goes, team breakfast is 10 a.m. tomorrow. They're going to, instead of shoot around, they're going to go over the game plan there. I'm like, when I'm going, he goes, He's like, yeah, Rod said, tell McQueeny to come. I was
Oh,
like, oh my God,
wow.
that's awesome.
That's
know?
amazing.
And I went to the team breakfast and I'm like sitting
Yeah.
there again with my head down. They're going over exactly what they're going to do that night. But it was cool to, once they let you in, it was cool for like the really cool kids to look out for you.
Right. What an amazing time in your life. I mean,
No,
it'll
never.
never, I mean, I don't want to say never happen again, but wow. I mean, precious, precious memories. You got to fly around the United States with the team and just, wow. I mean, and honestly befriend a lot of the players as well. I remember you struck up a special relationship with, was it Boki? No, it was the other guy.
No, Boki was great. Boki
Yeah,
was great.
but
He was
who
actually on my podcast and no, you know what though? They were all really, Maynard was good.
Ned Christic. Yeah. Yeah. He was funny. That guy is very funny.
No, I mean, you realize they're just
Yeah.
guys, right?
Oh,
I mean, and
absolutely.
they're I mean, the thing for me is it's hard for me to oversell myself into a place because I don't like people who oversell, and especially if they underdeliver.
Mm-hmm.
I like to observe and kind of find the right place for me and to be appropriate. But when you're going into some situations in life, you can't be appropriate and get the thing. And I don't mean be inappropriate, but you can't just be like measured. You almost have to at times overpromise. But if you're that kind of personality, I feel like you'll actually overdeliver the
Mm-hmm.
overpromise because you'll end up creating something better than people could have even envisioned when you were telling them about it because it will be more authentic and connected. And, I always thought about really what you just said, and I've told my wife this, that I'm not saying this to be pessimistic or anything, but I always say I will never, ever have something in my life professionally that is as well placed at a point in time, at a point in interest, in the heat of the interest, as that time with the Nets, and then riding it and continuing to go up to get to the road. I remember I went to Orlando Summer League for a week I just kept ascending to the point where people knew me, like in the crowd. And, I remember doing one time I showed up in LA to a shoot around in the morning. And it was funny because I'm like, I'm ridiculous, right? Like I make myself comfortable. So the team was practicing at like an LA Fitness in El Segundo or something. And so we pull up in the truck or in the bus, and then I'm going to cover shoot around too. And I get to go with the team. It's easy. So they're doing shoot around. I sneak through the back door. I do a whole workout. I go to the LA Fitness. I'm like doing leg presses, pull downs, bench.
Why not? You're there. You might as well.
Then the producer of Yes Network goes, Beatles feeling under the weather today. He goes, can you handle all the interviews for us? I'm like, sure, why not?
Oh my God.
And literally I wish someone had gotten it because when they do that, they're playing the game and then they'll go, hey, just this morning they were talking about this.
Yes, of course.
And it's the balls bouncing in the background and they're at shoot around. And I was doing all the interviews and it was hilarious because I'm not like that kind of reporter, the sideline reporter. So I'm not asking I'm asking good questions.
Right.
And I remember it ended and the producer from Yes is like, that was good stuff. It's going to be interesting to see how we can tie it into to the game. I'm like, geez, dude, I'm in a workout outfit trying to like work out here. And you tell me I got to come do the interviews with all the players, but the players are funny. They just roll up to you. They're like, yeah, all right. They're told where to go.
Right. Of course.
And I always wish that got recorded somehow because it was like me doing all the interviews,
Yeah. Yeah.
with my mic. But that's the thing. Like there will never be something like that. But I think in my career, I allowed that to give me the chance to feel complacent in what came after it. Because if you just say, Bruce Springsteen, Glory Days, right? Um, you might not know where to push or where, and I got it kind of easily, if you will. Like, yes, I worked really hard to get it, but there was no real doubt. I was offered the job so quick. It came to be so quick. Each thing I asked for happened so quick that there was I never had a point where I was like, oh my God, am I not going to get this? Am I not? The payoff was so fast that everything that came after it was like the frog legs burning on the stove, like it's just a slow cook. Before you know it, you're cooked. And so I found myself having to say, yes, if you say you had everything at 25, that's amazing. And yes, I built a family, and I have to be very happy of what came in the 10 years after that I was able to build on the non-professional realm. But it was there where I said, you know what? Enough of this. Nothing's happening where I am anymore. It was a cool place for a bunch of years coming out of the Nets, where I still got to do some sports things, be in the realms I wanted to, but it was dead and it was pulling me with it. And I just got uncomfortable again. And I put myself back in school, and I started, again, one of these things that just come to you. You came with the pillows. That was awesome. Like,
right.
Didn't know that was even an opportunity, but like I started to just really lean into what maybe I was good at that was undersold, which is in the position I'm in now. They're like, all right, you're head of relationships. And I'm like, really? Okay. And I'm like, okay. Right. Yeah. But again, relationships in the way I do it, I don't think of it as like sales relationships. I think of it as creating meaningful connections. Like, we know if I'm in this program at night, I'm making connections there. I'm finding people I like working with. I'm finding ways to get big league pillows into one of the semesters. And now we're killing two birds with one stone, working with people. You're trying to, and it's the inertia. You push yourself in and you just get active and ride the wave, and don't get paralyzed about what may or may not happen. Because often if you just start riding, you don't have time, and it puts you in a better position to just react and to just fall back on the base principles of who you are. And when you get comfortable there, oh my God, the ability, I'm reading this Netflix, great book, the Netflix book, No Rules, about their work culture. And there was something in there. There's two things I'm just blown away by. One ties to what I'm just talking about. It's this idea, ABCD. We all knew ABC, always be closing, right? From Glengarry Glen Ross. ABCD, always be connecting the dots. I'm like, oh my God, that is my mind in a nutshell. I don't know what the dots are, but let me connect as many valuable dots as I see into some ecosystem that is my conception of the world. The other thing I love is they have something called the keeper test. They say to imagine for everyone who works with you or for you, if that person were to come to you and say, I got another job, and they're told to say to themselves, if they came to me and said that, would I fight to keep them? If the answer is no, then get rid of them and pay them a generous severance and find someone to be in that spot who you would fight to keep. And I was like, whoa, that's savage, but it's really interesting.
It's certainly thought-provoking. It's certainly thought-provoking. So we have about 15 minutes left. And I got a couple more questions that I'd like to ask you. You gave us amazing color on what it's like life on the road with an NBA team. Tremendous stories. Thank you for sharing those. When you do have a lot going on, and you alluded to Big League Pillows. Matt, you're a partner in Big League Pillows. Years down the line, we reconnected on the Big League Pillows opportunity. I always knew when we went our separate ways after the Nets that our paths would cross again. Not because because of some sort of whatever. I knew I wanted them to intersect again because how much I enjoyed working with you at the Nets, and just how valuable of an asset you can be to any team. So it's been tremendous working with you with Big League Pillows, and
You too.
but it doesn't stop there for you, right? Like you're in Big League Pillows. You're also part of a new company that you just started, Canobus. Am I saying that right? Canobus?
Konobos. Yep.
Conobus. So you've been working with those guys, and then you're also you're getting your MBA. You going to school at night, and you have two beautiful boys, and you're married. You got a lot on your plate, right? So what I want to know from you is, when you get overwhelmed with all this stuff, how do you decompress? Like, what do you do to kind of unplug, or, like I said, yeah, decompress?
I drink. No, I'm just kidding. No. Well, no, because I think on top of it, so we had COVID happen, right? As
Right.
well.
Mhm.
In some ways, COVID helped some of this stuff. It helped me not have to go to school in person, right?
Right.
It had our family with us in place. So I think the way I don't know. Cause like I would almost ask the same thing to you too. I just think you just put yourself in as many things as you can and have faith that you're going to find time for your rest, which is often more important, I think, than decompressing, right? I think it's find time to get the rest you need. Because if you don't get the rest, tomorrow's going to be a manic day. And it's not even going to be about the work that's coming in. It's just going to be about your underserved body trying to take on all these things. So I always think get rest, eat as well as you can, stay as lean as you can within your body, work out, but work out in such a way that your body needs it those days. I can't run 3 times a week. I'll fall apart. It's too much. I got to cross train, swim, bike, but just always be doing that because it's going to help. And I drink a lot of coffee in the morning too. It's going to help. I got to keep even, right? So like the coffee gets me inspired. The working out takes off the excess caffeine. Maybe a couple nights you have a little wine down. But I just think that I was never one of these people where you just find yourself hustling, but you get excited about all of these things as if they're a portfolio of stocks. You have the family component doing stuff. You have the marriage component in its own realm. We have the things we do with Big League Pillows, Double Down increasingly. I have the things with Conobos. I have school. I try to connect all those dots as much as possible because then it kind of chunks all of the tasks into similar groupings. So if I can get Big League Pillows to work a semester with the MBA program, that's pretty awesome. I'm getting kind of an efficiency there. If Conobos helps me launch a podcast there, as we've done, called the Conoverse, and I can bring on people to talk about their lives like you've been on, it's fun. I don't know. Again, I've never been this kind of person and I haven't broken down yet. There are times where it can feel tenuous. Am I going to get this thing done? Am I going to get this deal done? But I just think if you have enough across your portfolio and you're not leaning, like a case in point, I think the Big League Pillows and the ultimate, I guess we can kind of say fun stuff, right? Is it?
Sure, you could say.
The ultimate fun stuff has the legs to be a long-term value play. If when you're anxious to get out of one opportunity, like last year, if you try to force something like that to be more than it can in the moment, it's going to it can't, right? So as long as everything can be put in its proper place and you have a portfolio of things you're happy about doing, and get rid of the things that you're just not, find a way. Honestly, I had no idea how to get out of the rut I was in because a lot of my network was from that rut. And so I made a concerted effort to try to start talking with people who I've liked working with. We always stayed in touch, but to expand that network of people I liked working with who I'd lost touch with. And Adam, on the first, maybe the second person I talked to was what generated the opportunity that I'm at now in Konobos. And I came in doing contracting work, potentially low level. And it was a great thing because I was paranoid all the time that the culture there was really good and nice. And I'm like, where's the other shoe going to drop? This is weird. And it made me work harder and harder. And at times I'd be like, is everything okay? They're like, oh, no, you're doing great. And then I'm like, okay. And then as time goes, I was like, hey, I think I can do this. And so I think this can cover a lot of my time. And so I quit the other job and I leaned into this, and I just kept connecting dots within the company, outside the company, to people, partners, using the podcast, using all the things at your disposal to go after business deals, to talk to people. I just connected dots. And then all of a sudden people are like, what would make you happy? And I'm like, oh my God, no one's ever really asked that. And for maybe the first time,
right,
I said, I would be happy. I'm happy right now. I probably shouldn't say that to you, but what would make me happy is X dollars guaranteed per month. And maybe like leadership potential. Within a week, both were secured. But just keep going. I told you last week offline, I'm like, you know what? Schools, I got one more semester of school. Things are going to open up there. I was like, let's get some more tasks with pillows going. So I don't know. You probably feel it. There's a threshold somewhere that's too much. It's a gut feeling on what it is. I think I acclimate to each new level, and maybe unhealthily. But I think all my vitals are good, my everything. So I just keep kind of trying to do more in the realms I want to do. If I get something coming in that doesn't sound kosher to me, I might ghost that opportunity a little, right? Like if someone comes and you're just, so I stay core to these things and just try to augment these different dots together. So I don't even know what do you do to de-stress?
Oh, geez. Well, you know what? I gotta be honest. I think I'm a different kind of animal. For me, there are projects that I work on that are very stressful and that do tax me. But then I offset those projects with projects that I really love and I really enjoy. Big League Pillows, perfect example. For me, working on Big League Pillows and working on the passion projects that we have, that's how I decompress. More work. I genuinely enjoy what I do. This is a decompression for me. I've been having so much fun with this podcast and spending an hour and a half with my great friends and hearing these stories and creating a platform for more stories to be placed. This is how I decompress, doing really fun projects with my friends. So again, I don't necessarily need to step away from the work. I need to step into different work, right? Work that I really, really am passionate about. I mean, like I said, we all do the work that we have that pays the bills, but then there's stuff like this that allows me to decompress, and it puts a smile on my face for an hour and a half, 2 hours. I genuinely enjoy the time I'm spending with you and whoever else is to come. So this is how I decompress. Doing projects I genuinely enjoy and spending it with people who I genuinely enjoy, and or collaborating with people who I genuinely enjoy. And that would be a perfect example with Big League and these other projects that we're working on. That's pretty much how I decompress. But I find it so funny as we kind of allude to the podcast situation here, and you've been a podcaster now for how long? How long have you been podcasting?
September of 2013, which would
Wow.
mean almost
9 years.
Almost 9 years.
Wow.
Almost 9 years.
Wow. And I've been on your Mix Minus podcast.
Yeah.
I think 2 or 3 times.
Yeah, I think you've been on. It's been a while, but I think maybe 3 or 4 times, possibly.
Right.
Yeah.
And then I've been on the Conaverse.
Yeah.
Conaverse. I keep saying it wrong. Conaverse.
Yeah.
A podcast. And it's just been amazing. And you asked me while I was on the podcast, kind of a closing question, and I'd love to flip it on you this time. And that question was, what advice would you give your 18-year-old self?
I would give my 18-year-old self the advice to ask your parents, ask my dad a little bit more about the business side, to lean into it a little more. I think I was so personally fulfilled, and maybe that was the magic, was to allow a kid to find his interests and passions devoid of an ROI. But my parents paid for my college at an expensive college. My dad said I made money to pay for school. My dad always paid for books. Like if we'd go out, he would never buy the cool like skateboard or something. I'd have to sneak with my mom to go do that.
Mm-hmm.
But if we went to a bookstore, you could walk up with 25 books. He's putting it down. Like he's putting the credit card down. But I think that I really like how all turned out, but potentially to get that entrepreneurial spirit a little earlier would be the only thing. But again, if at 18 you told me, because I think 18 was around the time, 2000 was 18, so I was basically 19 when Jason Kidd came there, right? If you told me around that time, hey, you're going to be working for the Nets with a guy named Adam Alson, you're going to be traveling with the team and writing about them in 6 or 7 or 5 or 6 short years, you are going to go back to school. I'd be like, no, I'm not. You're going to find entrepreneurial opportunities. You're going to learn how to say it when you're in your mid to late 30s. That's maybe what I would tell that 18-year-old kid. Hey, listen what these next 21 years are going to look like, because just stay on there. Don't do drugs.
Right.
Just, I really, and I think the thing I would finish with that, there's a really good lesson in that is life is a continuum. You're never finished until, like we say, you're fully finished, right? But you're never finished. It doesn't matter if you haven't started something. We have an amazing ability to learn, and we have an amazing ability to be resilient and to bounce back. And if there's one thing, when we loop this back around from what we talked in the beginning, that social media teaches us, is we could try a million things, and those things that fail are just not really seen and fall off to the side, right? So just keep pushing, finding ways to integrate your passions, the things you wake up each morning wanting to do. Make sure that there's a way you're satiating that each day, right? If you want to hit baseballs, if you want to lift weights, if you want to play music, I'm not saying it's going to be your job, but find a way to do that. Because when I was playing music, when I was 17, alone in my room in a closet, just 4-tracking music, 20 years later, I could have told that kid, that's going to make the leapfrogging of your ability to podcast that much quicker, because you know how to track, you know how to produce sound, that if you can just speak it, that part was not hard. I didn't have to do any study on that. So everything you do informs the next thing. and you're never done with your story, and you could rewrite your story.
I love it. I love it. I absolutely love it. That would be great advice. I have one bonus segment that I'd like to do with you. I think it'll be a lot of fun. Being that you are a Nets super fanatic, we're going to do, if you're cool with it, we're going to do a little pop quiz on your Nets knowledge.
Ooh. Okay. Okay. I might. That's the interesting thing, by the way, is I love sports. Football maintains because it's a once a week thing that you can dive into. The Nets are good now. I could, I'm not keeping up like I did.
It's okay.
Crazy.
It's okay.
Yeah.
We're gonna ask you. I wouldn't say they're softball questions, but I'm pretty sure you're gonna know the answer to these questions. Maybe you don't. I don't know. We're gonna find out. Here we go. Question number 1. What year were the Nets originally founded?
Wow. So they were in Long Island. I'm going to say 1972.
You were kind of close. 1967. Originally founded in 1967. Close.
Yeah, that's a whole nother world of the Nets. It's crazy that Dr. J played for them even. It's crazy. They won championships.
That's right. That's right. Right. Question number 2. What was the Nets' original name?
Wasn't it the Americans?
That's correct. There you go. All right.
What was the front of it? Was it the long? Was it the?
It was the New York Americans.
Oh, the New York Americans.
Or the New Jersey Americans. Sorry.
Yeah, and they used to play in the Teaneck Armory, which is still around. It's crazy.
Unbelievable. There we go. Question number 3. Let's see if you know this one. Who is the Nets' career leader in steals?
Isn't it Jason Kidd?
It's Jason Kidd.
Yeah,
that's
correct.
What I
thought. I'm like, is that 2? Who's number 2? Who's number 2?
Oh, I don't know. I just got I got the right answer. You're gonna have to Google that later. All right, here we go. Question number 4. Which Nets player holds the record for most free throws made in a single quarter?
Let's see. So is
kind
it
of a tough one?
Is it modern era or older era? I mean, like 2000s or 90s and up, or is it?
You would have been watching the Nets when this happened. That's
Right,
the only hint I'll give you.
Most free throws in a quarter.
Yeah.
So Jason Kidd didn't get there a lot. It's not Vince, is it?
It's Vince Carter.
Yeah,
Vince
okay.
Carter.
Yeah, no, he would get there. Okay, yeah. Because Richard would get there too.
Our old friend Vince Carter holds the the Nets NBA record for most free throws made in a quarter.
How many is that?
Good old I don't know. I just got the right
I thought
answer.
it would say it there.
It probably does. I didn't get that part. Okay. Bonus question. This is a toughie. I'm not sure you're going to be able to get this one, but hey, we'll give it a shot, right? Let's throw it out there, see what happens. But so far, I believe you went 3 for 4. That's not bad. Okay. Who was the first Nets player to win Rookie of the Year?
Nets first player to win Rookie of the Year. This is good. Was it Keith Van Horn?
No, sorry, it wasn't Keith Van Horn. It was Buck Williams.
Oh, Buck. Yeah, that goes pretty. Yeah, Keith was an interesting one because he had a nice run there.
Like I said, that was a bonus question. I wasn't expecting you to get that. Was a toughie. but you did on the regular on the quiz. You went what did I say 3 for 4. That's not bad. That's pretty good.
75. Yeah,
75%. Yeah, we'll take it. That's a winning percentage.
So the problem is it's the early net stuff. It's the early net stuff that gets me, because you almost don't even think of the nets as existing before like the 90s. Although you saw them show up in that Last Dance documentary.
Yeah.
They gave Michael Jordan a little bit of a run there.
Yep. Well, Matt McQueeny, you said it all. You really you really did. Thank you so much for joining us on the Double Down podcast. I had an absolute blast having you. If you'd love to or like to give a shout out to anything that you're working on, where the fine people that are watching could find you, I'll turn it over to you.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to follow this audio vein, then I would check out the Mix Minus podcast. It's a very oft used podcasting name, so I went with the name. So you'll have to look through some SEO, but Mix Minus with Matthew McQueeny. And then I'm the co-host of the aforementioned Coniverse podcast. You can listen to Adam on that one. Very similar conversation. And yeah, I'm on all the socials, Matt McQueeny, Matthew McQueeny, and MatthewMcQueeny.com can get you to all those places.
Get you all those places. You just led with that.
Yeah, but I want to get the hook in there.
Fair enough. Well, once again, Matt, thank you so much for joining. I really enjoyed this almost 2 hours that we spent chatting it up. We'll have you back again soon for some more stories from the road. That was unbelievable. And hey, guys, until next time, thank you so much for enjoying. Once again, Happy New Year, and we'll see you guys again soon. Bye-bye.